We are standing at the threshold of a golden opportunity. But how do we move forward? How can we consciously align with the cosmic cycles unfolding around us and within us? In this episode, we explore the golden path. Practical ways to navigate the rhythms of awakening, transform collective challenges into
Tune in with the Galactic Spin podcast and expand your view.
We are standing at the threshold of a golden opportunity. But how do we move forward? How can we consciously align with the cosmic cycles unfolding around us and within us? In this episode, we explore the golden path. Practical ways to navigate the rhythms of awakening, transform collective challenges into opportunities, and walk in harmony with the unfolding cycles of time. Welcome to the Golden Path, navigating the cycles of collective awakening.
Tune in with the Galactic Spin podcast and expand your view.
In Lakesh, and greetings to everyone out there tuning in tonight at this moment. Welcome to the Galactic Spin podcast. My name is Mikuak Rai. I'm joined by Ruben Llinás here on this epic journey of discovery and recovery and all of those good things. In Lakesh, Ruben, how you feeling, man?
In Lakesh, brother Makua, can you hear me well?
Sure, yeah, I think we can hear you fine.
Okay,
Back there in the
that's good.
backstage, give us a cue if we need to adjust the sound or anything. But no, you
Perfect.
sound great to me.
Okay, thank you so much again for the invitation and the opening. Very, very honored and excited to be here today on this 11th round. We are about to complete one hologram of 13 episodes, so we are
Wow, look at that.
feeling the shift that has happened in the last 11 weeks. So it's an honor to be with you today here again, now and here and now, to really put this four-dimensional perspective and a higher noospheric perspective to everything that is happening on Earth at the moment. So very, very honored to be with you and with the people that are following our work on social media and on this channel. Very honored to have their presence live or in the future.
Exactly. Well, definitely. Thank you, brother. Thank you very much. And there's so much to get into. Certainly, things have continued to compound, it would seem, since the last episode. And as you mentioned, here we are, episode 11. And we're going to continue exploring this idea of the golden path, really related to this golden intersection of timelines. And what we've actually only made conscious in the past few days, I would say, is this thread, this continuity, really this golden thread. To identify it as such is kind of a new context in a sense. And so that's where the idea of the golden path really is coming through at this time in the transmission, as we are endeavoring to make this conscious journey over the coming moons to this particular intersection of timelines. And it really does bring together past, present, future into a convergence, a moment of significant convergence. And so we hope to illustrate some of the numeral significance to that over the episode this evening. And also tune into the concept of resonance and reverberation. I know we've been really tuning in that that's a part of the frequency, that's a part of the action and the way through which this alignment, this gathering, this momentum is being affected. So it's a beautiful thing to be here with you. And thank you as well, as you said, to those tuning in. Also a special shout out to Ishel Esta for her wonderful intro video.
Yeah.
And thank you for allowing me to replay it. I didn't mean to cut it off the first time. So I figured I'd better go ahead and replay that so we hear it in its entirety. But it's perfect, and it really does sum up the focus for where we find ourselves now, and certainly so much to get into. So thank you, everybody, journeying with us in this experiment and experience together as we creatively endeavor to meet the moment. So with that, we're going to go ahead and check in with the Earth's pulse. We'll be right with you. Yes, indeed. And brother, I know there's a lot to check in with. As we mentioned, there's an effect of time compression, it seems, happening right now. There's quite a lot of things that are piling up, we might say, or compiling. And as we look at some of the 3D projections in this current space, as we're sort of being shown through multi-mediums, both commercial media as well as a lot of just people's cell phones and people beginning to track this apparent phenomena of drone sightings and the increase of them. It's a lot of interesting perspectives coming in about what this may be. And so we definitely want to identify this, because obviously in this moment, this is certainly something not to miss, we could say, in terms of one of the markers that's speaking to this moment. I'd love to hear your elaboration on that.
Yes, absolutely agreeing with everything you just shared, and just making sure that everything that we are here highlighting that is happening on the planet is because it has a really an effect on the frequency. And of course, when phenomena like this happen, that are several sightings all over the planet, doesn't matter if they call it drones or UAPs or UFOs. This is something that is calling people's attention, certainly, and the fact that they started to be spotted on November 18 was the first sighting. That it's been going on. It's an ongoing phenomena, and actually, in the last 24 hours, mechanical hours, there has been reports of these sightings in China, in Australia, in Russia. So it's becoming like a global phenomena. So it's certainly it's a situation that it's new. It has never presented in such a massive way, and of course, it is interesting that it also synchronized with the escalation of the the situation in Europe, when the U.S. approved the use of missiles to in the war with Ukraine and Russia. uh.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So this is let's say that a really something to contemplate, that it happened at the same time, because there may be some sort of at least someone is monitoring something, huh? So
Yeah, I think that's
so
an interesting way to put it for sure.
mm,
I'd like to also add, I was tuning into a couple of different perspectives on different broadcasters and their
yeah,
views on what this may be, right? Because as you said, it's been in the media to a greater or lesser degree since November 18th. Also,
yeah,
to just mark noospherically, that's kin 134. So we were
hmm,
in the mystic column at that point as well. So in terms of just a fourth dimensional frame to that moment. But looking where we are now, Elizabeth April, the broadcaster,
hmm,
discussed a remote viewing session she endeavored to do, looking into that issue and that question, as it's top of mind, as it seems on the mainstream media now. A lot of people are forcing questioning of their congressional representatives, and people in Congress want answers from the military or the FBI, et cetera. So she was doing her own method, in this case, remote viewing. And if people don't know what that is, I just encourage you to look that up in terms of a method of um, transferring one's awareness or consciousness to a different space and place along the grid, we may say, of consciousness. But in this case, she found herself moving from the center, like in New Jersey, basically to some underground
hmm,
military
yeah,
operation space.
hmm,
There was a container of sorts for all of the technology for these drones. I mean, if they're the size of a car and you're seeing so many of them and you're wondering where they're being deployed from, what she was
hmm,
identifying was that it was from some sort of military base, which seems plausible. But that then the orders for which the deployment of such was coming from the Pentagon. And so
hmm,
then next in her exploration remote viewing, she was taken into the Pentagon, where she was in a center or a room of military officials, basically coordinating something relative to the deploying of the drones. And then
hmm,
beyond that, she was taken to another offsite location where there was orders at that point coming from a shadow government of sorts,
hmm,
as she was describing that. And I don't really view her material that often to say I know much about it, although I
yeah,
thought it was a very interesting interpretation just through her remote viewing process, that she was pinged from one place to the next to come
hmm,
to that particular outcome. And then she was led to go on and elaborate that what is happening currently, as her perspective, she's suggesting that this is a test to test the reaction of the population prior to potentially another degree of experiment, we could say, for
hmm,
attention or experiment for control of, whatever the case may be. I mean, obviously, we know there was a controlled experiment related to the pandemic that had a
hmm,
certain measure and form and function. And it was
hmm,
also predicted at that point that there could be some other type of uh, phenomenal event, because
hmm,
this is kind of bordering on the phenomenal if military is denying any knowledge of it. And the
hmm,
thing about that is a certain branch of the military might outright deny it because they don't know anything.
yeah,
It doesn't mean it's not a military operation.
exactly.
And so that's the interesting thing in the language we have to really listen to and have the media literacy to hear, is that we're being told, in a sense, what it
Hmm,
is. And to whatever degree we're going to react to it or consent to it is going to be very interesting as
hmm,
this emerges. And it was said that basically part of it also was a deliberate attempt to interfere and this again is Elizabeth April's perspective, to interfere with the incoming Trump administration
Mm-hmm.
and to basically, effectively, have some kind of negative effect on the incoming administration. So all
Mm-hmm.
that is quite interesting, and there's all sorts of contrast and contention, obviously politically, economically, energetically, internationally, you name it. Any which way you look, everything is pretty tense, and
Yes.
relations are strained at best. Though it's going to be very interesting to see, how we react. When I
Mm-hmm.
say we, the sort of collective, and it's interesting we're also talking about that today. So we could have a collective reaction,
Mm-hmm.
whereas I think what we're really moving towards is a collective awakening. And
Mm-hmm.
perhaps something like this could serve as a flashpoint to cause a catalyzation of our collective awareness and consciousness.
Mm-hmm.
Perhaps,
Yes.
perhaps. Many things
Perhaps.
could, just the same way as I'm sure 9/11 was a flashpoint in the
Mm-hmm.
consciousness band for our collective awareness on some level. Each of
Yeah.
these mega moments, we might say, and something like this, I think, is interesting to watch, which is why we're continuing to kind of stick with it and identify it,
Mm-hmm.
not because it's just such a phenomena, but just to say it is part of the transition in consciousness that's
Yes.
happening. And we have to be aware of what some of the ploys are also that are at play
Mm-hmm.
to manipulate and misdirect consciousness all the same. So it
Yes.
remains to be seen. I mean, we don't have any conclusive finality to say this is what it is, but there are
Yes.
certainly a lot of perspectives beginning to
Mm-hmm.
emerge to suggest what it is.
Yes. No, and we have been tracking this story since I think episode 2 or 3, when there were some hearings in Congress,
Yeah.
because certainly as there is a geopolitics drama happening, is also an exopolitics drama happening at the moment, which is this apparent presence of extraterrestrial cultures on planet Earth, even as humans, acting as emissaries of other races, but in a human body. So this is part of this process of disclosure that it has been we have been primed also for years through Ancient Aliens to the movie series in 2013 about this presence. So this is certainly going to make those voices uh, express also their perspective of what is happening, and those experts in the field will certainly start to drive the narrative. So it's something that we are checking and observing without giving it too much attention, because actually anything that is happening in the exterior is putting us out of our own center,
Hmm.
our own inner universe. So it's always to keep that inner contemplation. And today is actually a beautiful opportunity to dive into this theme of the golden path, in terms of comparing it to actually a golden spiral, ascending spiral that we are navigating
Yes.
through a vast ocean of time, which is this universe similar to what we see in the background. Like we just see this movement, but this is moving in a spiral uh, fashion. And of course, we are going through that spiral, and now we are entering the 13th step of the spiral,
Mm.
and that's the number that was the inspiration for this entire creation of the harmonic factor. Is
Yes.
that that's basically the the small big difference that makes one the plus one factor, the 12 plus one model, the application of that model to everything, and what that universal architecture can do for us, really, because it's there. We just need to connect, to plug with our biology to this frequency. It's just that this frequency works in terms of mathematical ratios and harmonic relationships. So what we are going to do today is explore some of that. We certainly, on our last episode on the what's next section, we were jumping in a little bit on what we are going to dive in deep today, because it's really all about um, the the navigation of this fractal nature, or this fractal structure of the universe that is governed by that number 13. And, it's an exciting time to be alive and to be able to really experience it in our microcosm and macrocosm, especially seeing everything that is happening on Earth, and how in just 7 days from last episode, this story picked up so much attention.
Right.
There's certainly something happening, and that's in order to apply those four-dimensional lenses to what is happening on Earth, and see it from the noosphere, the noospheric perspective. It's why we connect every week with the codes and with these four-dimensional tools that allow us to see what is happening behind the scenes, so to speak, of these scenarios of apparent chaos on
Mm.
planet Earth that are driven by some sort of harmonic relationship.
I'd like to add to that also that we want to equip ourselves to meet this moment. In other words, we want to really emphasize the qualities that are going to be complementary in this process of remembering and recognizing this incredible elegance that is revealing itself. I think, what is being revealed now is the frequency at which harmonization is occurring practically in real time. And so when we begin, as you mentioned, the harmonic factor is such a significant point to make, that being the number 13. And when we begin to really look into that quality today, in today's broadcast, it's going to become even more evident to us, I think, more collectively, why this golden intersection is so significant, why it's so significant, the timing of it, the completion of the cycles that are related to it, what it is actually initiating even beyond that moment is going to reverberate and resonate across the time space very, very importantly, I think. And so I'm excited that we can journey into that a little bit more specifically today, and amplify more about what we mean when we do say the harmonic factor and why that number is so significant. So thank you for everybody tuning in, and we're going to go ahead and shift into our tuning up and syncing in portion of the broadcast. Sync in and tune up. And as always, we like to identify where we are in the new Sirius cycle. Number 1, we are in the 37th year since 1987 in the new Sirius cycle 1. What you're looking at is the cover of the 13 moon 28-day harmonic synchronometer produced through the Harmonic Factor. The download is available on the harmonicfactor.com. If you'd like more, feel free to visit the website for that. And we just want to go ahead and share just where we are in this sequence of events. Feel free, Ruben.
Yes, brother. Thank you so much, and highlighting also the fact that this new Sirius cycle 1.37 is a fractal of the golden angle. So to just start entering into the frequency of today's transmission, That's the number governing the whole year, the whole 13-moon year of the blue rhythmic storm is coded by the golden numbers, because that's the golden angle, the measure of the golden section within a circle. So that is part of the conversation that we were sharing on our last episode at the end, which is the entrance into, we were closing the fifth moon and entering the sixth moon. So we are now in the rhythmic moon of balance, which is an invitation for getting organized and balanced and really going or acquiring the new rhythm that we established the first 5 moons. And those 5 moons were basically the first golden section of the year. So that's an important intersection, and these points of resonance within the 13 moon structure will allow us to experience events on our bodies and our consciousness in a whole different way. That when we pay attention, like we did on our last transmission, with that when we were highlighting the fact that the that golden section synchronize with the golden section of the Solkin matrix, it's it's something special. It's a golden finding that is just be- making like very very clear and very very evident that there is a harmonic principle driving this entire uh, golden path to the golden intersection of Thailand. And here, what we are is tracking our step by step movement through that path and what appears in front of us as we walk that golden path. And that golden path is the path of the golden proportion. So that's the differential factor of this perspective that we uh, give on the harmonic factor is that we are integrating the golden ratio and the golden proportion as part of the system, and 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 we honor the entire system for its fractal beauty, and otherwise it would not be able, we would not be able to really track those sections and those points of the year, and highlight what we have been highlighting for the last 11 weeks, because the entire path of 52 heptads or weeks to the golden intersection that we started with this broadcast is basically a milestone within a larger uh, path of harmony that we have been walking since December 21st, 2012, especially. Especially that's one of the dates that we are going to speak later today. But let's contemplate this infographic for a moment. This is the point of harmony that we just passed on the 12th month of the 12th on the 12th day of the 12th month of the Gregorian calendar, the the feast of Lady, Our Lady from Guadalupe. So that's also the 28th day of the fifth moon on the 13th moon calendar, day 140 of the year. And as we mentioned on our last episode, 528 is the hertz in hertz. Those numbers in hertz is the love frequency. So we can start to feel that vibration of the golden section, and its connection to love, and the elevation of the spirit. That's what attuning to the golden proportion really allows to appreciate beauty in everything, but especially in certain moments of life, like this one. like this one, and like this entire golden path to to the golden intersection of timelines. So in the next slide, we can see that we just entered this sixth moon, and this sixth moon is like we mentioned before, the tone of equality is an invitation to organize and balance, and the energy that is uh, helping us navigate this moon is the Earth, which is the same wave spell that we are right now on the 260-day count. So the presence of this element of navigation, it's really an invitation for us to pay attention to the not only the path in, ahead in the close future, but also the path that we just walked, especially for the last 12 years since we crossed that event horizon of December 21st, 2012. Because we are about to on December 21st, 2024, we are going to start that 13th stage of a hologram that it's going to culminate on December 21st, 2025, and complete the like the notion of reverberation and resonance that you just mentioned. It's going to be felt for sure, because it's not planet Earth is not the the same from for, it's not the same world that we were 12 years ago. Hmm. There was no artificial intelligence, no cryptocurrency, or in early stages of the cryptocurrency. So it was a complete different hologram, and we are going to about to shift again from that. So what happens in this entrance to 2025 is going to be very uh, in resonance with what we experienced in 2012. That's kind of the um, situation at the moment. So that's the probably the synchronization of these events on Earth happening as we are moving into that frequency. It's something that it's also like an invitation for contemplation. And I don't know if you want to add anything to that, Pat.
Well, I mean, certainly what we're seeing here is elegant in its unfolding. So just looking at the markers and where we find ourselves in this ongoing process, I'd like to look at the next slide, in fact, but I don't want to skip over the current one,
Yeah.
just because,
No.
I think what we're seeing here it's giving us the coordinates of what's in process.
Yes, and we want to highlight every time that we enter a new moon, at least that's part of a fractal nature of the 13 moon 28-day system,
Yes.
calendrical system, is that since we have 13 moons of 28 days in one solar year, each of those moons can hold, instead of one day, 28 days, and become a moon. And it's the fractal moon count of 260 moons. So basically, we have been emphasizing that every 20 years we complete uh, 260 moons, and in the same way that every 5 years we complete 260 weeks,
Mm-hmm.
cycles of 52. Each year is a cycle of 52 heptads or weeks. So those fractals of 260 allow us to see and to perceive the energy behind the time that we are living. And in this case, this entire 13 moon year, the purpose is our free will, our ability to influence, and the ability to really elevate our minds and connect with our hearts to acquire wisdom.
Mm-hmm.
So this is it's that's the theme for this entire years to really contemplate our humanity and live that adventure of the evolution of the human, which uh, the first moon of the year was magnetic human. So now we just crossed the fifth moon, which was the overtone warrior, and what that energy was bringing to that overtone moon, in which the 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 warrior is the archetype of the pathfinder, and it's really that resilience of the warrior that is giving us now the rhythm to navigate this process of 1 year, in which the theme of this main song playing in the background is our humanity and our humanness.
Mm-hmm.
So this it's a beautiful opportunity this entire year as preparation, because we have been highlighting how to prepare for this harmonic passage, and just we need to prepare our minds and our hearts and our bodies,
Exactly.
and elevating our vision is always like a good way of doing that, of
Expanding
elevating.
expanding your view, as we've been saying.
Exactly.
I'd like to add that this is a very significant portal or anchor, we might say, of harmony today, being that it's also a magic turtle day
Hmm.
when you look at the 13 moon calendar, which means the tone of the moon and the tone of the day are similar. So today being um, kin one, just blanking on my mind right there. So today
Yeah,
being kin
162.
162 is corollary with the moon, which we know is coded by kin 97, which gives the quality of the rhythmic earth in that sense.
Yes.
On top of that, we're in the rhythmic storm year. So there's three layers
Hmm.
at the rhythmic tone of what
Yeah.
are basically compressing in this moment right now today. Now,
Hmm.
what's more is it's also right at the very end of this significant uh, I don't know what to call it, but this moment of 4 days, which,
Hmm.
I think are particularly important to point out. As you mentioned, we were in the last moon closing the 28th day of the overtone moon, and that
Hmm.
was an indicator of the golden section of the 13 moon 28-day year. So
Yeah.
that day was followed then by rhythmic moon day one, which we see here on the screen, and that
Hmm.
also being another portion of that golden intersection of the year. Then that immediately being followed the next day by the golden intersection of the Zolkin
Yeah.
of that cycle, being kin 160 and 161 yesterday, and then today being
Yes.
162. So, just in light of that significance, what we're actually sitting in at this moment is very, very special.
Yes.
And then if we also consider that the 160, 161 is a reflection of what we're going to be completing with the golden intersection of timelines on the traditional long count,
Yeah.
in basically a difference of 304, days from a couple of days ago. It'll be 304 because today it's 301 days. So
Yeah.
just watching the synchronization of these two counts
Hmm.
in a variety of ways at this golden intersection point.
Yeah.
Now, as we're in the process of making this conscious, making it art, making it sacred, that intention, just wanted to
Absolutely.
really amplify that as we're looking at the calendar, and again drawing an appreciation for what distinguishes the harmonic synchronometer from, say, just a synchronometer. The
Hmm.
harmonic is kind of the qualitative nature of what the harmonic synchronometer is endeavoring to do, which is identify the harmonic ratios present
Hmm.
throughout the entirety of the synchronic order.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Absolutely. You really hit the nail on the head with that assertion, because that's what it is, and what we are also observing uh, during these convergence of golden sections, the golden section of the 1328 matrix. When we complete those 5 moons, and there's 8 that are remaining, and in the Solkin matrix, we were just completing 8 cycles of 20 days, which is on King 160. So King 160 and King 161 are the golden section or intersection of the entire 1320 matrix. So one is remarkable that it takes place in the wave spell of the Earth, that this wave spell of the Earth is the 13th cycle of 13 days of the Solkin. So by the closing of this entire cycle of 13 days, we will be closing a perfect square of 13 times 13 days, and that means that we are in a very auspicious window, because what we are going to share today in depth is that this is just a preparation for something way bigger, way bigger than this synchronization of those 2 golden sections of the 2 matrices that we use to measure time. This is part of a larger hologram that is all directing us to the golden section, to that point in the future we have called the golden intersection of timelines. Like an attractor is the phi ratio, just bringing together all these spirals of time, all these timelines into one. And it's a very exciting moment to, like I mentioned before, to be alive and to really go through these cycles in full awareness, like we have been doing for, especially for me, 2012 was a year of full awakening, and we were both at this time of the year already being part of the celebrations of the closing of the cycle. I spent the 12 plus 12 in Chichen Itza, and you were in Palenque.
It's in Teotihuacan initially.
Teotihuacan.
And then I was in 1212, I was in Teotihuacan, and then we went through Palenque on our way to Chichen Itza for 1221.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we were both in the monkey and the Chuen zone. We were both absolutely anchored in that transmission that occurred, that's still occurring. Like we talk about reverberation and resonance. It's like waves. It's just ongoing. And we've been riding that wave in our various ways, like many, many other timekeepers out here as well. So big respect to those who've been keeping with the frequency in the multitude of ways that it manifests. You know, our real intention in this is to celebrate and to venerate the entire collective, because it's a moment like this is such a crescendo and peak moment not to be missed. And I also would like to describe this golden pathway, as we're going to get into here in a little bit, but it's really about threading that needle, that eye of the needle, with that golden thread. So it's threading that timeline, like we've been weaving this loom, as they speak about the Maya and the Zolkin being the loom of the Maya. It's a weaving of the quality of the nature of sorts, and how it manifests in your own unique expression, in your own experience, as you begin weaving your dream, if you will, your reality, as it were. So that's what is so exciting about this. And I also want to point to the fact that this red earth wave spell, being the 13th of the 20 wave spells, holds a very powerful significance all its own. We've already mentioned 13 being the harmonic factor. And then when we look at it, as of tonight's episode, it positions us in this magic turtle moment, in the rhythmic moon, on the rhythmic tone day, in a rhythmic year. Now, that then completes in the next 7 days on the cosmic moon day of this wave spell. So the next episode that we engage with the Harmonic, or rather the Galactic Spin podcast, will be on the red cosmic moon day, completing this wave spell. So it's a very significant opportunity, because that's a 13 times 13. Kin 169. When we look at these numbers and how they're interplaying and relating, it just gives us a broader perspective on that harmony, as we've been talking about, on the order that is at play in all of this working. And as Mama Audrey indicated last episode, even if you're not conscious to it, it's having its effect on you at this time. And that's what it is. Now, of course, we would love to observe it consciously and encourage others to become aware of it as well. And yet, rest assured, it's going to have its profound impact on every iota of life as it is in this transformative process that's underway. So I'm just very excited for the ability to hold space as we experience this together. And as we look at these numbers tonight, as I indicated earlier, we're looking not just now at this golden intersection of timelines. That's obviously a very pivotal point for us to meet the moment consciously, knowing that the reverberation from that is going to impact and reverberate over certain frequencies of time and duration beyond that moment. And it's almost like seeing a skipping stone when you try to skip a stone across a lake. It's going to have that kind of rippling effect for sure, as we've been seeing. As I've indicated, we're still riding the waves of what happened 12 years ago at this point, meeting the closing of the cycle. So it's a beautiful thing to recognize that as well. And as we begin to look at the various ways that this time science of the synchronic order applies to where we find ourselves in reality, with these complementary reflections on harmony, when you apply the Fibonacci or you apply the golden ratio to these calendar systems, something beautiful emerges. And that's what we're holding space for right now. So yeah, so much to be grateful for. And I think in light of that, we're going to just jump right in and move into the next section, because truly this is a manifestation of the qualities of time is art. And it's a real blessing to be able to hold space like this together with you, brother, and make bring these things forward to our collective consciousness. We give thanks. Indeed. So as we shift gears into time as art, this is a segment of our podcast where we like to really look at what is being offered in this moment. Last time we had the great pleasure of hosting Mama Audrey Scott Williams, as she was expressing some perspectives from the grandmothers of the Four Directions, the guidance that she receives and channels. And what's becoming clear is that various transmissions are receiving a similar message, a similar indicator for this special sacred moment. It was described last week as the breaking of the golden egg, the cracking of the golden egg. And in that, it's eliciting this transformative experience that's underway. And that we as human beings are invited to reflect on and remember, in a sense, our golden nature, the nature of our light beingness, we could say. And part of this golden thread that we want to help identify, and this path that we want to travel together with you, is going to take us forward and backward in time. Obviously, we've been anticipating what's to come in the near future and the forward-facing arrival to the golden intersection of timelines. But at this moment, it's important that we also reflect on the weaving that's been underway over this past 12 and into 13-year window that we're navigating consciously together. And many of us like this, who have been aware and coherently engaged with this transformative process, this biosphere-noosphere transition, it's also referred to as. This is a beautiful, beautiful moment, though. And again, much respect to all the timekeepers out here and all those who are traveling in this qualitative direction on behalf of the greater good.
Indeed. Yeah, and this, like today's theme it has been growing organically according to this golden path that is being revealed with more and more clarity and harmony as we move forward in the path. And of course, in that path of 13 steps or 13 rings, solar rings of 13 moons each, we have been, let's say, keeping record of special points of resonance, and those points that are particularly connected to the awakening of the collective. And those 2 points, probably the most important uh, nexus points within the fabric of time, was December 21st, 2012, the closing of the 13th back tune, that was also known as the Galactic alignment, and July 26, 2013, which was the exact midpoint of this new Sirius cycle one, which is the first 52 years. That was galactic synchronization, and it was the arrival of the new galactic beam or the new information frequency beam that is basically allowing us to make conscious everything that we are been doing for the past 12 years, which is making conscious these patterns and the way that they are informing us in our everyday life. So the golden path is really that organic path, and we honor the path of nature and the path of harmony. And because as we can see in the next slide, we live in a fractal universe. So basically, everything is we know for sure that everything is connected. We feel separated, but we are part of a much larger pattern. And in this image, we can see a neural network, the cosmic web of this space, and a mycelium, which is the network of fungi below the earth, and they all are similar, but it's basically it's the same fractals in from the micro scale to the macro scale, just repeating themselves. And if we become conscious of those patterns and fractals in time, we are really evolving in a very organic and on like a way that is unequivocal, let's so to speak, because we are not we are just writing a frequency, which is this in this case the number 13. So we become basically instruments for the frequency to do what it needs to do, and we are now being those vehicles. That's really what we are doing, and because this frequency of 13 is pulsing through our own body, through the female body, it has 13. The female temple has 13 gates. So everything is part of this fractal, and the fact that it's also part of the cycles that we are tracking, and to the golden intersection of timelines is such a beautiful ceremony that like we have been doing, because every broadcast, every transmission, we put a lot of love in and time in making the content as easy and interesting to absorb as possible, so that you can find a similar reverberation or vibration of our admiration and excitement about what is happening, the excitement of anticipation of wow, this frequency is really pulsing us. It's here. It's
Mm.
we know it's there, but when we can see it, it's like a different flavor, the experience. So we want to more people to have that experience of being pulsed by that fractal of 13. What is really um, the we are hearing right now so many forecasts for 2025, but it's really what is pulsing behind is this number 13. After crossing these important event horizons. So what we are going to explore today is that presence of the number 13 across the fabric of time space, and how it's connected to the golden proportion and the moment that we are living. So as we can, this is a slide that we will be bringing here and then, which is the definition of the golden proportion, at least for us here at the harmonic factor. And we describe this principle as the love intelligence that reflects the perfect balance between art and number, heart and mind, and engenders the organic processes of growth in nature. And this is inspired in also in the work of John Major Jenkins, who is the person that said the golden proportion is the key to a fuller understanding of a phenomenal unfolding, for it manifests in organic forms such as seashells and pine cones, as well as our own DNA. The involuting spiral of consciousness, the unfolding of the spiritual flower. This is what the golden proportion describes. So John Major Jenkins, the researcher who first pointed out that that there was this connection to this mathematical principle within this matrix. And what we are doing here, this golden path, is putting those two together, those two aspects of harmony together, the cosmology of time of 13 and the golden section, to appreciate points of resonance within that spiral of 13. So if we go to the next slide, we can see that in the Solkin, we already mentioned that we crossed, when we closed the fifth moon of the year, we were crossing the golden section of the year. Now we are crossing the eighth column of the 1320 matrix that was 2 days ago. So basically, those 4 days of golden section synchronizations just ended yesterday, but we are still in that reverberation, because the number 162, which is the king of today, is still close to 1618, which is the golden section. So we are in that frequency of the golden section, and the idea is that we start to train ourselves to see this presence of this intersection at the smaller scale, 260 days, and at a larger scale, which is the next slide, in which we presented last week, basically the golden section of the 13 Bactun map of recorded history, which is the cycle that closed with the December 21st, 2012 galactic alignment. That entire cycle is coordinated by the golden ratio. The first day of the entire cycle of 13 Bactuns, which is approximately 5,125 years, or 5,200 tun, cycles of 360 days, where each of these units of these 260 matrix is one generation or one katun, a cycle of 7,200 days. So during that span, the entire history of modern civilization, it's encoded. And after 2012, we entered like a fractal hologram of this process, but in years. This is what we call fractal time compression. As we complete 13 units of 144,000 days each, next year around the solstice, we are going to complete 13 solar orbits from crossing that point of resonance. So that's what we have been highlighting, because we just moved through that frequency of King 160, and which was the closing. So since at the macro scale, the golden section is governing these points of resonance, because the golden section the of that cycle of 260 generations is the emergence of Jesus Christ, which is actually the celebration that is connected right now to this time of the year in the Gregorian calendar. So we can see that that's the Bactun of the Anointed One, and we see the cross. This is the map of the 13 Bactun map of recorded history from Jose Arguelles, Dr. Jose Arguelles, and on the Mayan factor of 1987. The only thing that we have been highlighting here is that that point of arrival of the messenger of love, which is Christ, coincided again with the golden section of the entire cycle of evolution of modern civilization, since Sumer and Egypt to the atomic bomb and the harmonic convergence and 2012. So we are now on the other side of the eye of the needle, treading that golden path since that point, since the point that we that December 21st, 2012, on the long count 13.0.0.0 for Ahau, which is again the golden section. So the fact that it appears 3 times in marking such important moments for humanity, it's giving us a hint that we should pay attention to this frequency, because it's where big shifts happen. So we are now entering into the second golden section of the year. So this is a moment of time of really jump into that wave, and run the frequency. And now, if we go to the next slide, we can see that cycle of 13 years that we are going to close on December 21st, 2012, is a fractal of the hologram of the 13 days or the 13 moons, or any cycle that we measure of 13 units, 13 Bactuns. So each of those years is a recapitulation or reenacting of those 13 stages, because there's a reverberation of that same fractal taking place always at a different point of a spiral that is ascending in frequency. The pitch that we will be entering right now, which is that frequency of 13, it's going to activate the whole structure. That's why it's the last unit that is going inside the spiral, is going in the next, is the 12 plus 1. It's the really going one level up. That's why it's the 13th tone is the tone of presence and transcendence. We transcend and endure, because it requires endurance and to transcend the 12th, and to really put our consciousness above that mark. And it's also really special that this December 21st, 2025 will be King 12. So we will be basically the next day will be King 13. So the 13 years of the closing of the cycle will be followed the next day by kin 13, another alignment of beautiful resonance and
I think it's helpful to
significance.
point out also that kin 12 is the crystal human. So as we talk about the quality of kin 12, we're talking about this golden path, this golden thread we're weaving, and that then reflects an embodiment or the emergence of that light being I was referring to before, that crystal human in a sense, but
Mhm.
knowing the color gold or yellow is applied to the quality of the human, the ripening of the human, that sort of that whole experience of the human. And what's more, as you mentioned earlier, this entire year is fractally coded by the magnetic human.
Yeah.
So here we are, sort of the beginning of a process, and we see a culmination of that process in this crystal human of sorts. It's kind of an
Mhm.
emergent process. So we're witnessing
Yes.
it in the code, but it's also happening within each of us on a cellular atomic level. It's happening to us and through us. We can also
Yeah.
cite the plasmic activity impacting our planetary field as having an effect upon our enlivening of that energetic field that we each possess. So it's a part of that coming online with that light body even more being activated by the solar plasma. So there's a whole integrative
Yes.
process that we're undergoing, a major mutation of sorts, a
Mhm.
solarizing and galactivating effect all at once. And so I just want to paint that picture for folks as well when we're speaking of these particular coordinates. They're almost like energetic hieroglyphs, sort of identifying a qualitative frequency that is embodied by that particular code that then reflects what we're going to be experiencing on a very organic level.
Yes. Yes. And highlighting the fact also that we we are this frequency. We have 13 joints, so it's always good to keep that in mind to really start to embody the frequency. So these 13 stages or 13 units are really part of a process that is happening in our bodies every 13 days and every 13 months. We are tuning into these frequencies. And if we move to the next slide, we can see that we can apply also this fractal to the cycles that the ancient Maya used to measure. They were not measuring just solar years because they do have the HAP, which was the solar calendar of uh, 18 cycles of 20 days each for 360 plus a 19th cycle of 5 days called Wayep. But they were also measuring on the long count these cycles of 360 days that resemble a circle, a perfect circle of 360 degrees, to reconcile those extra 5 days in a different way. And when we apply this uh, frequency or this fractal of 360 days, is we can see that in 2024, in 2025, on October 14, we will arrive to that fractal marker of 13 backtoons, 0 katoons, 13 toons, 0 winals, and 0 kins, which are cycles of 1 day, winals cycles of 20 days, and 13 cycles of 360 days. So those that day would be for a how again. So it would be a completion of not only cycles of 360 days, but also the completion of 18 cycles of 260 days. That's why the marker on the long count corresponding to the 260-day sacred Solkin count is for a how in both. Because 18 cycles of 260 days is equals to 13 cycles of 360. This is something that only emerged using this principle of measure. Because let's remember also that 360 times 4 is 1440, which is a fractal of 144. And that's how the entire system builds up on these harmonics and these fractals. And we will see how these two markers that we mentioned at the beginning, December 21st, 2012, and galactic synchronization are synchronizing in this wave spell of the Earth, which is what makes this entrance to the golden intersection of timelines and this entire moon so powerful, because we are basically running that frequency of 13 in the background. Is the 13th in the 13th Backtune count. The first digit is going to be 13 for 144,000 days. So it's always that number in the background. If we were using that calendrical system, we will put our dates every day on our uh, journals, and we will put the number 13 at the beginning, because that would be the date. And we are leaving that frequency until I think it's the year 2407 or something like that, when we
Mm.
close that cycle. But that's the background frequency is the number 13.
Hmm. I'd like to
It's just
point out.
that,
Good.
yes. No, no, it's just that we are going to, on October 14, we're going to experience like a fractal of that frequency in tunes, which is a harmonic of 360.
Exactly. And I'd like to suggest maybe that is what, in fact, identifies the October 14, 2025 date as having its, shall we say, astronomical element,
Mm.
because the tune cycles identify that correlation or that relationship alignment to galactic center. And so that is a celestial
Yeah,
orientation. So it makes it calendrical, mathematical, and celestial in that regard, that when we identify the uh, tune cycles, that does serve as an orientation. Would you say that's correct?
yeah, that's absolutely correct.
Okay.
That we can really use that measure stick
Hmm.
to correlate different cycles.
And so, similar to the timing then kept when we were tracking our orientation to galactic center in December 21st, 2012, then we can appreciate then the corollary or the reverberating effect of those tune cycles being measured out to a frequency of 13 of them, which is amazing. And like you said, the mathematical factoring of 18 times 260 and 13 times 360, both factoring to 4,680, is a
Hmm.
beautiful relationship to see how that is actually also being synchronized or
Yes.
recognized or included in a beautiful, beautiful way. So, talk a little bit about what we're seeing here now in terms of the measure of our relationship to Galactic Center from where we were at this point nearly 12 years ago, knowing we're about to enter the
Yes.
13th year of measure.
Yeah. Well, that eye of the needle that we spoke some moments ago,
Hmm.
it's basically that C uh, uh, numeral on the graphic, on the infographic, which is basically the intersection of our sun during the solstice with the center of the galaxy, which is an area known also as the dark rift, and that the Maya used to really consider sacred. They will call it the Shivalba, which is it was equated to the underworld, because it's basically that cosmic yoni that connects us to the other portals. And since we were crossing that point or that intersection, uh, and as we can see on the in the diagram, points A and B is 1500 BC and 3000 BC. So we are still in that bullseye, really, of that frequency. And every year around this time, we align with galactic center. So basically, we are in that channel of communication, and we are more exposed because the sun is crossing that area again. But let's say that now it has moved a little bit to the right, but it's still in affecting us, because is there, like we mentioned before, the reverberation. And in the next slide we can see that basically those coordinates of that day connected to the golden proportion to a space alignment that this is from Stellarium. This is the actual screenshot showing us the moment that the sun at 11:11:11 universal time was intersecting the heart of the Milky Way. So that's what John Major Jenkins also named Maya cosmogenesis. This alignment was discovered by him, and it was a confirmation of the accuracy of the 13 Bactun count, having that convergence of space and time for that solstice day of December 21st, 2012. So that's that's one of the points of major awakening, and like I mentioned before, it's informing us since then, because we cross the numerals the day before were 12.19.19.19.0 419, think. And those the frequency shifted to 13 Bactuns on December 21st, 2012. Since then, we are moving forward, but that's the frequency informing us. And
Indeed. Talk a little bit about what we see at the bottom as well with the grid,
oh yes,
for people seeing this for the very first time.
Yeah, we decided just to make also a stamp, a timestamp, using the different systems available, which is the ancient Maya long count on the red left part of the graphic, with the month followed by the month of the Hap, and followed by then the Lilian count and the Gregorian count, and then we see the Galactic Maya or New Sirius cycle count, and then we have the green column is what we call unified cosmic time, which is the adding of the frequency of the Galactic Maya with the ancient Maya long count. When we add those two, we have another frequency, and on the last columns we see the astronomical events that were happening that during that time. This is part of what we call a guide, a navigation guide that we launched, I think, 2 years ago, around 2 years ago, which is a navigation map in detail of each day since December 21st, 2012, and how we have been really entering into higher resonance with the frequency of number 13 throughout this entire process or golden path of 13 years or 13 solar rings. And the idea is that we can map here all those coordinates in all those different systems, so that there is no conflict, but we can see points of resonance and harmony. Like in for instance, in this case, we can see that the day for that numeral 13.0.0.0 was for a how in that navigation guide, and we know that that's the golden section of the matrix. So anything that is highlighted in this guide with this bright green is connected to that golden path or golden thread. And we hope to make this guide, the full guide, available for the 260-day countdown or count up for the golden intersection of timelines, so that we can have coordinates in those three systems and honor the ancient Maya calendar as what it is the first cycle that we are tracking, because it is thanks to measuring their cycles of in the long count that we are able to appreciate the overlaps and the harmonizations with other cycles, like the 13-month 28-day calendar, so, or synchronometer, let's say. And in this is one of the main portals, and the other galactic moment was galactic synchronization, which I think is the next slide, in which we have also all the coordinates below. What was the date on the, for instance, we know that that day was the last day of the waspel of the serpent of Chichan, because it was 13 Kaban, which is cosmic Earth, on galactic synchronization. So the idea is that we have a really good map and navigation chart to see in detail what these dates were holding in retrospective, and start to kind of to trace back the crumbles, and that golden thread becomes more and more clear, and we can see how some cycles interact with other cycles and they converge at certain points, like what just happened for the past 4 days, in which one golden section of one matrix synchronizes with the other one. And what we see here is that next moment of synchronization, which is the galactic synchronization, the arrival of the new galactic beam, on July 26, 2013. And that point, although astronomically was marking the rising of Sirius before the sun at latitude 19.5, like we have been measuring it, it's connected to December 21st, 2012, because we were actually here entering the frequency of 26, and it's 1.26, which is 2 cycles of 13. So basically, that's when the 13 frequency gets reactivated, when we are closing those 2 cycles of 13 and completing the first 26 years of a perfect cycle of 52 years that will come to a closing 2039. And that's the cycle of the new time. That's the cycle that we are measuring, the cycle of the noosphere, because the noosphere is the sphere of mind, and certainly time is of the mind. And if time is of the mind, let's say that the timing of the noosphere is connected to the release of these codes and this knowledge to humanity, with other disciplines like human design and Gene Keys later, which is part of that same transmission, or new light codes that arrive with the supernova 1987A. So what we are really tracking is the cycles of harmony that were triggered by that supernova event.
It's amazing when you really step back and think about it, and the relativity, the correlation between these various systems, and how they actually do fit with each other on the basis of number, particularly when we're talking about human design and how that evolves to be the gene keys in relationship to that exploration of their qualitative purpose relative to our human genetics. And to know that Dr. Arguelles was receiving similar indicators or applications as far back as the early 80s with Earth Ascending, which was way ahead of its time in terms of that knowledge base. But then that gives birth or rise to what would then become the Mayan factor that was published in 1987. And we see from that point forward, there are opportunities of overlap, as you're mentioning with John Major Jenkins as well, his discoveries, their overlap in terms of the release of this knowledge to our collective awakening. And that's a part of why we wanted to point to this information today, because we're recognizing there's a tapestry that's been woven, that's been something that we are realizing as a collective humanity. And we have many contributors to that tapestry, those who've gone before us and have laid the groundwork for things for us to pick up on and carry through with this thread. So as we're looking at this golden intersection of timelines, we're carrying that thread through, as we've been pointing out since 2012, weaving this golden thread across this 13 tune to 13-year cycle that beyond that culminates in the year 2026 with 13 years since galactic sync. And I think that window that we're pointing to in that 2026, that 26 frequency again, even the numbers 2026 implies 52, we could say. 2 times 26. The year 2026 as a frequency holds very interesting opportunity, I might suggest. So we will have at that point been 13 years on this side of that new beam. And I think that holds in its own some remarkable things yet to explore. And I know so much more is going to present itself and reveal itself in the days ahead, let alone the moons ahead. I mean, there's so much that is really beginning to come forward. And I'd like to also pause for a second, because I recognize that we've been benefited by having this tool to lay out these various calendars and timing systems to see their implicit harmony. We're seeing where they align with each other. Now, that's something very interesting, that if we could find people adept in the traditional Maya long count, and those adept in the dream spell and the 13 moon calendar count, and then those adept in the gene keys, for example, and other similar systems, even the spiritual or religious calendars, be it the Hebrew calendar, the Islamic calendars, those lunar counts, and lay out these various counts alongside each other, we would get then a more coherent picture of the harmonic weaving among all of them. And that's one thing even proven through the revealing of the sequence of days of the Gregorian calendar, that's the so-called Lilian count. It's the unbroken count of days of the Gregorian calendar. And the fact that it completes or arrives to a frequency of 161802 and 803 in October 2025 is just, it's remarkable. And I think we mentioned it last week that then informs a 443-year frequency of harmony that, taken at any point, could be applied across that as another measure of harmony when you begin to look at it in those terms of knowing that you complete basically a 443-year cycle of completion since the initiation of the Gregorian calendar. It's interesting to think that, this in a way is a way to raise the vibration of that particular lens, because it's caused a lot of conflict, a lot of disarray. And yet at the same time, at some point it would meet out a harmonic purpose, we could say, that we could actually point to and say, oh, see, then that's when it becomes synchronized to the greater or higher harmony. And so I think it's no coincidence that we're having all of this apparent galactic interaction, in some cases, maybe some intervention, because we certainly need that at this point in this human planetary experiment. But just to say that it does appear that there are codes, in other words, that we can begin to activate at this time to illumine that golden thread for ourselves. And that's where this ephemeris comes in. That's why it's very important to us to make it available publicly. It's already available. If people visit the harmonicfactor.com, they can go ahead and they can download a variation of the ephemeris, the initial launch of the ephemeris, but it only goes up to a certain point. And so we're going to pick up that count. We're going to pick up that thread, so to speak, literally and figuratively, so as to provide people this tool to serve their own internal synchronization. Because as you begin to become aware of the synchronization underway, it will absolutely affect you. And we wanted to speak tonight also to solutions. And that's one of the solutions, is how these things can apply to us directly. Like you said earlier, time is of the mind. It's an aspect of consciousness. And so by applying these tools to your consciousness, you effectively bring your mind into a proper synchrony or synchronization with time itself, which again is of the mind. It's of the mind of the earth. It's of the mind of the cosmos. So, really looking at that, I'm getting some notes here as well, just to we want to emphasize what are some of the practical ways to navigate these rhythms of awakening. And so what I'm suggesting is, by tuning into this podcast, for example, by going to the harmonicfactor.com, actually download the tools for yourself and begin to utilize them. In other words, study them. There's some basic instructions for how they function. You've been learning enough now to know that what makes our tool unique is we do apply the golden ratio and the Fibonacci sequence as a tool of measure to measure harmony. Now, it's not the only tool to measure harmony. Obviously, the number 13 is a tool for measuring harmony. So is the number 52, and so is the number 260. These are all frequencies that allow us to measure and identify harmony and synchronicity among various timekeeping systems. But we want to point to those things because I do think it's important now that people have practical tools that they are compelled to apply to themselves. And it's very important to have those anchors now because, as we've heard it said from Mama Audrey last episode, and I've been hearing others say it, Richard Rudd said it in a live that we caught last week, Richard Rudd being the author of the Gene Keys. And he was mentioning that, though there is a process of evolution underway, the gene keys support our involution. So we want to be wise to the fact that what we're experiencing here out in the world of appearances, such as all these sightings of drones and things, that is still the external world of appearances. It's not a replacement for the inside job required right now. So the tools of the harmonic order that we're providing or presenting are intended to help you support you in that internal process of contemplation, of recognizing, where you find yourself in this collective awakening. But it certainly is oriented to where you literally find yourself.
Yes.
Because each one of us are the center of our universe. Let's not forget that. And so equally so, and that's the beauty of the law of kin, is because every one of the kin of the 260 in that beautiful tapestry are equal in their value and their measure and their purpose and their worth and everything you can imagine. It only promotes and elicits equality. And we're in the rhythmic tone of equality right now to the third degree, in the rhythmic year, on the rhythmic moon, on the rhythmic day. So let's not lose sight of what's even happening in this moment. In this moment of synchronization. And again, whether you're conscious of these things or not, they are affecting you. When you become conscious of them, it in my experience, it makes the play of life far more creative, and it gives you more tools to perceive more coherently what's actually happening, that it's not actually happening to you, but it's happening for you. And that it's also inviting you to step into your super identity, if you will. It invites you to step into your galactic identity, to say, hey, Agent 126 or Agent 113 showing up for this experience. So we definitely want to encourage people to get their decoding. So go to lawoftime.org. If you don't know your galactic signature, that's kind of square one, frankly. When you come to us, by the time you get to our work, you hopefully have done the rudimentary discovery of just your basic galactic signature, because frankly, our work is definitely a little bit more advanced. So I don't want to, neglect the fact that for beginners, it might be a little bit of an on-ramp, process. We want to try to find ways to make it a little bit more approachable or accessible for folks. But certainly getting your galactic signature is kind of number one to do. So we want to encourage you to go to the website lawoftime.org. And at that website, you can decode your galactic signature. Now, at that point, as we shared with the video from Jose and Loidine Arguelles from a few weeks ago, as Loidine described in that video, once you get your galactic signature, you are automatically enlisted in the Galactic Federation. It's just that simple. It's just that direct. And let me not simplify it by calling it simple. It's actually anything but simple. It's just so potent and so purposed that if you're getting your galactic signature, it was meant for you to get it, period. Everybody who's ever been decoded has their own unique experience of what that is. Even if you were decoded a decade ago, you won't forget that you got decoded, and you may pick it up later on the thread, and that's fine because it's only a continuity. There's only, the evolution underway, the involution happening. So I just want to point to that. Get your galactic signature, get decoded, and then when you plug into our tools like the Harmonic Synchronometer, 1328-day calendar, in that manifestation, it will help you derive even more value once you know who you are and how you've shown up in your respective galactic signature. That's a specific tool to offer yourself at this time. It's a gift from the Galactic Federation to the planet, to your consciousness, to gift yourself. And you might also want to gift and decode your mother or your father or your brother or your best friend or your lover or your husband or your wife or your children, your cousins, your community, your coworkers. Like once you begin to identify who's who, it becomes a whole new field of play. It becomes a whole new field of play. And at that point, you begin to engage yourself and others in what are called adventures. Because what we're on right now, y'all, we've called it a ceremony since jump. 52 heptads, 52 weeks of holding a space, of involving and evolving towards this moment that is utterly phenomenal. And it will also be transitory. So it's only going to happen for one moment ever. So it's something so rare and so precious that we've devoted an entire year leading up to it to do our very best to bring as many people's attention to it. So we really do hope that those tuning in out there, listening, can appreciate that we're not just here waxing prophetic or wise for our own benefit. We really want you to benefit from the awareness that this moment is for you. It's for all of us. And if ever there were a time to anchor in everything we've been cultivating from all of our respective paths of spiritual evolution and involution, this is the time to truly, truly dig in. And so I just felt the urge to just kind of speak to that right now, because we're certainly providing a lot of technical tools, and we're always happy to elaborate on the technical side of things. And at the same time, we also do want to resonate and reverberate with your lived experience. And then when you can couple your own organic lived experience with some of these maps and tools, it will only illumine that golden thread and that golden path for you, uniquely for you. On a certain frequency in this entire knowledge base, presented originally through the law of time, foundation for the law of time, and evolved through various expressions. When we get to the level called synchrogalactic yoga, there's a dimension and depth to synchrogalactic yoga where you're literally activating and asserting your role and responsibility to perform the actions of the Buddha. So what does that mean in relationship to the golden thread? Well, it relates, because we're talking about threading illumination across timelines and through experience. And each of us have a Buddhic potential, we could say, to truly tap into that internal enlightenment, that quality of illumination that elucidates then for you what's actually happening and how you're showing up for it. So I want people to feel encouraged to know that by attuning to one's galactic signature, they begin to turn that light on, and it begins to reveal a whole new tapestry of perception and a perspective and a purpose to the individual. And because it's based on synchronicity, you are the one to determine what is a synchronicity for you. It's not something somebody else can determine for you. Now, you might recognize it in mutuality with another when you're actually tuning in and using this language, exploring this language together, then certainly synchronicity is the norm. But absolutely be encouraged at this time, because there's a lot of other interference. Part of the aspect of the word interference is it's entering fear into the equation. So we have to neutralize the fear. And that's what the illumination does, is fear doesn't vibrate. It can't enter that vibration. You see, fear has a certain limit to which it can vibrate. So we're talking about vibrating higher. We're talking about illuminating this collective path with each other. How do we embody this in our lives? How do we walk in the harmony of these cycles? Well, thank you for joining us on this consistent offering here, and really recognizing this is an invitation to you to participate in the ceremony. There's something that we're going to be amplifying with greater regularity, that we've been amplifying actually on our social media channels and platforms. But that's the circumpolar rainbow bridge meditation. That is an actual practical application of your cognitive mental attention being centered in your heart, the force of your heart, to then recognize yourself in your own sense of remote viewing. View yourself at the center of the earth, and emanating out from the center of the earth in all directions, to the top of your head, the bottom of your seat, in a circumpolar fashion, meeting at the equator, embracing the planet and hence yourself and every living being in pure love. That is a practice of focus to begin to consider, to apply at this time. That is the type of way to meet the moment as we near this golden intersection of timelines. That effectively serves to help us activate the noosphere. That's that thinking layer of the earth we're talking about. That's where we're looking on the screen, the first 52 years of this thinking layer, Earth evolving to receive its complete noosphere. That is actually part of our prescribed purpose of being conscious, awakened beings of humanity at this time, is to assist Earth in gaining its complete noosphere. But it's also affected by us getting our own internal house in order. And the more we can take to doing that important work, then the more we're participating in this increasing impact that affects the Earth on a planetary scale. It affects it on a galactic scale. And we have to say, Earth is vibrating higher. It's up to us to vibrate higher with it to make the shift. Not necessarily everybody's going to make that choice or is even aware that that choice exists. Some people are in denial of that outright, and that's okay. Because it's not a matter of determining this or that or the contrast of such. It's a matter of clarifying for oneself, what is it that I am creating right now? What do I truly want to live into? And accepting, as Audrey said last episode, the moment is so potent and so ripe to posit whatever it is. We're going to get that amplified multiple times. And I think as we see the effect of coming into alignment with these particular frequency patterns of 13 tunes, and then later 13 years to the 13-year anniversary of that most important threshold, and then to the 13th anniversary of this galactic synchronization. That series of alignments is, it can't be understated. I guess that's why I'm just so enthusiastic and impassioned by this, because it's one of those things you just don't, it's like you don't want your family to miss out kind of thing. You're so inspired by the beauty, the elegance, the intelligence and the eloquence of the cosmos, and even making us aware of these things, know? And the proof is here, in a sense. It's right here for people. We have the numbers, they can see the numbers. And let's just seal this with a bow if we can. Because I mean, as if it's not enough, we're currently, navigating and closing this 19-day cycle that we currently find
Mhm.
ourselves in. It's just an amplifier of the significance of this moment.
Yeah.
And so maybe you want to elaborate on Ophiuchus and where we find ourselves in that transit currently.
Yes, this is something also that a phenomena that we have been tracking for some years now, that this is the time of the year, November 30th Gregorian to December 18th Gregorian is the 19-day passage of the sun through what is called the forgotten constellation, or the 13th constellation, that is Ophiuchus. Ophiuchus is the serpent holder, as we can see. It's interesting that the word phi is in his name, but it represents Asclepius, and in Roman mythology, the man who conquered death by with the poison of two serpents. He received a bite, and the other serpent was the cure for the other poison. So he transcended death, and this is the basically the 13th is always associated with the transcendence. And this something that is hidden also in terms of astronomical events, because the 13th constellation is forgotten. So every time that the sun goes through that passage or to that constellation, with that frequency of 13 also gets activated. And the fact that it's synchronizing this year with galactic synchronization and that milestone of 16 Solkins is just one of the many expressions of synchronicity that this frequency of a yellow galactic seed has been bringing since we crossed that event horizon. And this is what we are going to see in the next slides, because when we receive confirmations from the space matrix that we are navigating that frequency, and this is, remember, this is the 13th cycle of 13 days of the Solkin matrix, and we are about to close or to start that process of that 13 step or towards 2025 and the 13 years of crossing the event horizon of the 13th Bactun. So that the number is really pulsing us in the background, and this map corresponds to another instance of synchronization, which is when we completed 13 tunes from December 21st, 2012. It was Kin 165. We see there where the red star is. That was the 13th instance, or the 13th cycle of 260 days since we crossed the event horizon. So basically, this is a point of synchronization between the new Sirius count and the ancient Maya long count, in which right at that moment of completing 10 cycles of 360 days, we completed 13 cycles of 260 days from galactic sync. So those 2 dates, galactic synchronization, December 21st, 2012, they have been already interacting in these different uh, patterns on a longer scheme, or based on these longer periods of 13 called tunes. So basically, what we are witnessing is precursors to the big crescendo, which is the golden intersection of timelines. As we can see on the graphic, it's going to be on October 14 and 15, 2025. It's when we arrive to that synchronization point, in which we will complete one perfect hologram of the 13 Bactuns, which is what we see below. So basically, we're entering that uh, last column of this diagram, which is the unit 13. And we will, in this broadcast, every 7 days, we're going to basically update uh, everyone and ourselves on how these cycles are informing us. This is another instance of galactic synchronization we that we have been tracking. Is an advanced layer of the law of time. Is the it was the the measure of cycles of 144 days, and this cycle was introduced 8 cycles of 144 days before before galactic synchronization. So basically, galactic synchronization was the outcome of 8 cycles, the compounding power of 8 cycles of 144 days that started on October 22, 2010, in 197 red lunar Earth. On that day was revealed that timeline of the 8 cycles of 144 days to galactic synchronization. And what we have been doing is, since galactic synchronization, we have been tracking that frequency. Since the Maya used to track 144,000 days, let's keep tracking that interval of 144 days and plot it on a map to see where we arrive. And what we see here is that basically the 22 cycles of the prophecy of the 13 heavens and 9 hells of 52 years each. This is what we see in the bottom. The cycles of 52 years were equivalent, or what we call that fractal quality of the equivalence of cycles of 52 years with cycles of 144 days, and where they lead us. And what we discover is that the last day of that cycle number 22 of 144 days was precisely on the long count of the day 8 Can, which is Kin 164. So basically, the two bookends of this entire cycle of 22 cycles of 144 days that started on galactic synchronization and ended on March 28th, I think, of 2022, on Kin 209, red magnetic moon. That entire cycle is coded by galactic synchronization. And we are going to see more and more of this frequency of Kin 164, which is basically in 2 days. So be especially aware of what happens that day. There's another practical approach, is that when the frequency is informing us, and this is a corollary to what you so eloquently shared, the more we tune into the frequency, the frequency is tuning us, it's informing us. Time informs biology. So basically, the more we tune to these cycles, and we do our best to track every day what is the day of the moon, what is the kin on the 260-day cycle, we are pacing ourselves, and we are entraining our bodies and our biologies with this frequency. So the frequency is going to inform us, and we are going just to reverberate and resonate with what the frequency wants to express. And in this way, we start to really move into this state of consciousness that is continued consciousness, fourth dimensional consciousness, that we really bridge the gap between the third dimension and the fourth dimension. That's another practical approach, is that we can weave this entire path since December 21st, 2012, with continuing consciousness, is supported by the codes of the fourth dimension of the law of time. So the idea that we make these alignments and these planetary parades and synchronizations conscious here is with the purpose that we entrain with the frequency, that we feel it at some point like, wow, this is amazing what is happening. And that arousal informs the noosphere, because there is every aha moment brings a peak in the field, and this certainly this cycle of 13 days that we are navigating, because there is more than those two events aligning. There is another alignment happening, another synchronization that we didn't mention, but that it's worth mentioning because it was part of the investigation that we started in 2013, and that was presented actually during Galactic synchronization in Mount Shasta, which is the cosmic harmonic convergence. We are completing the same day, next December 21st, 2012, will be Kin 167 blue spectral hand, and that's the same frequency of what we call the cosmic harmonic convergence. This is when the grand sextile alignment between 6 planets of the solar system, creating a perfect star, 6-pointed star, aligned with the heliacal rising of the star Sirius in Mecca, which is the golden point of Earth, the golden section. If we see on the next slide, I think is where we are mapping that point, because it was like a corollary to galactic synchronization. This is basically the time stamp of the alignment for that day, July 28, 2013. And that's the moment when the star Sirius is rising at the latitude of Mecca, which is 21 degrees north and 31 degrees east. Since this solstice is connected to that other portal, December 21st, 2012, and that galactic alignment, we have two main alignments on this day that are converging, which is this grand sextile and the galactic alignment of December 21st, 2012. So the fact that those two instances are converging on this waste bill, the completion of 12 solar years from crossing that galactic alignment moment, and the completion of 16 soul kings of 260 days from galactic synchronization, and the completion then 3 days later on Kin 167 of this grand sextile alignment and the synchronicity of Sirius rising in Mecca. If we see that in the next slide, we see the particular interest of this is because, as we can see, Mecca is the golden point of the Earth. If we take that map and we put like a golden stick to measure the diagonal and the horizontal axis, are the golden sections they fall in that geographical place on Earth. So the fact that that's where the cube, the black cube, is positioned, and that there is a pilgrimage that happens every year in a spiral fashion to that point, well, it makes really powerful to make these, because these are like acupuncture points of the Earth. So when we really tap into the fact that in our bodies the golden section is at our heart, it's connected to our heart. The origin of that spiral is that heart within the heart. In a similar way, when we see a geographic point that holds this resonance of the golden ratio, well, it's something that we should contemplate and appreciate, because there is, of course, so much that we don't know of what really is this ceremonial pilgrimage to Mecca, and how ancient it is, and how people really live their daily lives just to embark on this pilgrimage and this journey to touch that stone in that cube, which appears to be like a part of a meteorite. So this is certainly something that we are going to keep tracking, the synchronization of these cycles within this 13-day cycle, and of course in 7 days, as we navigate the cosmic tone of this wave spell 13, we will see what else shows up on our front view window, and keep weaving that golden thread so that we can share it with more people, and more people can resonate with this frequency and can appreciate and wonder about the beauty that this entire creation is all about, which is governed by harmony, and that is a fractal network, a fractal pattern that we are just starting to make conscious at a whole different level.
Definitely, we are making it conscious together, and I want to give great thanks to Michelle for the fantastic graphics, just to help give illustration to the fractal nature. Today we obviously wanted to give a little bit of reflection of the mycelial network and the neural network and the fractality of that, and then how that relates to this dawning noospheric consciousness, this collective planetary mentation that we share as the noosphere is becoming more and more emergent. And so we want to just show the correlation. We're in the biosphere noosphere transition. We know the mycelial network reflects the biospheric weaving of that emergent field that really does maintain the communication and the nutrition of the entire biosphere, frankly. And then how does that translate or reflect in the noosphere? Well, similarly to what we're experiencing here, I believe, as well as others out here that are beginning to help the process of the emerging noosphere. Really, also, we can imagine that looking like a similar type of network. So when we talk about the meditations and things like this, we're inviting people to begin to envision activating that connective tissue, that plasmic, qualitative connecting tissue that we're all tapping into in one way or another right now, because that really does form the points of connecting, the nodes of connecting across the planet. I want to give a special shout out to our brother Jason, who is one of those timekeepers I'm talking about out there, always showing up and bringing the synchronicity and sometimes the necessary contrast to keep things in perfect balance and to keep us all on track, so that we're addressing things on every level that need to be addressed in this hologram called nation states and governments, as well as the fact that these systems are all subject to change and subject to some reorientation to nature's law. And so we want to honor, again, every level at which the timekeepers are holding watch and helping us shuttle this thing forward into a way that's truly equanimous, truly a representation of equality, order, and balance, like that which this rhythmic tone promises. So, just taking the time, really just to thank everybody for tuning in. I know it's gone a little bit longer tonight, but that's all right, because this is important for us to get out there, and we really do give great thanks to those who are serving as the noospheric feelers in the shared field of awareness out there, helping us pulse this information out there. Big shout out to Eden Sky and Bob Sky of Sky Time. I know we invited Eden to be a guest this evening, but in sometime in the near future, we look forward to having her to be able to share her own testimony of living in sync with natural time, with galactic time. And we want to encourage people to visit their website, skytime.com. They have great products as well, just to help you get in sync and to expand your view, to tap in to this noospheric consciousness, to really take that into heart as we make this transition together. So big shout out to her. And of course, the family at lawoftime.org. We want to invite you to visit lawoftime.org, which we really do consider the primary and original repository for this galactic knowledge base on the planet, without which we wouldn't have any conversation or commentary to share with you at all, because we've also been and continue to be well informed and guided by that most pivotal, groundbreaking information archived with the law of time, the foundation for the law of time. So great appreciation. And again, want to invite you to visit our website, theharmonicfactor.com, so you can access the tools we have there, including the 1328 harmonic synchronometer, to better appreciate the application of the golden ratio, of the Fibonacci sequence, and these other mathematical measures. It's important to note that, people like Robert Edward Grant and others who are using the tools of both mathematics and sacred geometry to identify resonance, identify harmony in the 3D, we really are encouraging people appreciate the application of these similar tools, not just to space, but even moreover to time. And that's one of the things we continue to try to drive home here, is that we can plot and map the harmonization of consciousness through time. And it's self-evident, and numbers hold meaning. They are communicating purpose. That's why knowing your own galactic signature is so important. So we encourage you to get decoded for yourself if you haven't already been decoded. Find out your galactic signature, because that frequency is going to on-ramp you into this wide array of synchronization and frequency, where synchronicity is the norm. And that's really where things are shifting to, no matter what. Things are becoming more and more coherent. That's the experience I'm having anyway. And I know many people out there who are choosing to feel into and live into and intend into and create into a higher vibration. They are also in various ways elevating their view, and they are, they're showing up, as their best selves, their golden selves even. So thank you all for tuning in with us. I do want to give reference to what is next. Naturally, we are keeping the count together. And so we find ourselves 301 days from this golden intersection of timelines. It's pretty amazing, because we started keeping the count at 365 days. That's our first count. And now we're down to 301 days. Now, it's interesting. That's a 365, 64 day difference. And we've also talked about that frequency difference between these points of meaning, that being the 13 tune cycle, right, that comes up on October 14th, 2025, to be followed by the next major cycle of synchronization, harmonic 13 years. And there is a difference of 65 days plus 3 between those markers. So knowing that from where we began this count, 365, here we are 64 days later, we're actually making conscious a certain harmonic arrangement in a beautiful way, because here we're observing the time that we've been holding this count, and we're reflecting on a count that's to come, at the point of completion of a certain sequence of events here. So again, these numbers do not lie. They are only indicating as guideposts the way forward and the way backward, the way outer and the way inner. They're omnidirectional, but they are absolutely trustworthy. And so we give great thanks. And I see our, as always, playful kin in the chat, chatting it up. So we give thanks. And yeah, big shout out to the new Amorican state assemblies and what they're doing. Check that out, though, for your own liberation as we're moving into that time, self-sufficiency and proper orientation to the situation, particularly as it relates to the fiction that everybody's in one way or another been made to navigate here in the so-called United States of America. but we do know it's more about the nation states or the national identity that we may choose to identify as. So we want to give also a special shout out to Ken 175. I'm seeing here in my producer notes, good news travels fast. Love that name, and love you showing up in your fullness to this live chat and providing your galactic imprint and essence into the frequency as well. It's a collective task, and it's an inside job, y'all. It's both and at the same time. So thank you, everybody, for showing up in your highest and best selves possible. And do us a favor, click and like the episode in our YouTube channel. That helps us get into the algorithm and show up on other people's, feeds and things like this. It's all organic in our case. If you want to donate to us, we put the donation link in the YouTube chat. We certainly appreciate the support, as this is entirely a volunteer mission, as it always really has been for this time-shifting mission. But certainly at the same time, any infusion of energy on the monetary level would certainly be helpful and will be aptly applied towards these efforts to raise awareness and engage the unification principle among all these great folks on the planet at this time. So big shout out to Foundation for Noospheric Consciousness for providing a base for us to organize from and to continue to present on a consistent basis an expression of our faith in this effort and our faith in this cosmic shift that is underway, that we are all participating with in various ways. So, certainly if you have any closing comments, Ruben, feel free to posit that now and we'll bring it on home.
No, bro, just ask people to really enjoy magnificent solstice moment. If possible, go to nature. If possible, gather with more people, with family. This is the time of the year that, of course, the Christmas program celebrations are taking over. So if you are with family, be the love that this messenger of love wanted us to express, and be compassionate with family and hold space. Enjoy the syncs. Pay attention to galactic synchronization. That 16 soul kin, which is aligning those two moments in time. The December 21st, 2012, also with the cosmic harmonic convergence. And thank you for just tuning in, for taking the time to pay attention to the entire transmission, and we see you next time. Thank you to everyone.
In Lakesh, y'all. Thank you for tuning in, and we will definitely see you in 7 days' time. One love.
Tune in with the Galactic Spin podcast and expand your view. Galactic Spin podcast and expand your view.